Good afternoon. My name is Connor McManus and you are listening to the Collective Fitness Show and Podcast. Before we dive into today's quick little podcast, I wanted to get some of the plug-ins out the way with, if I could do so. Facebook community. The Collective Fitness community. You will find us on Facebook groups area. Go into your Facebook search engine, whack that in and come and find us. We've created a Facebook group starting to kick off a little bit now. We did this so that it can be a bit more of a two-way channel for us and our customers and our clients and consumers, whatever you want to call you guys. We wanted to have an area where we could interact with you on a bit more of a one-to-one basis. Social media can be very much us just shouting information at you. So we wanted to actually allow you to ask questions so that we could answer them and build up a bit more of a stronger rapport with you guys. And ultimately allow us to help you in a more detailed way. Cool. So today's podcast. I was listening to a few of the podcasts I've done recently and I keep talking about a concept that I use with a lot of my clients, a concept that I was taught quite a few years ago now, and I've changed it to fit the spectrum of individuals that I work with. And ultimately I thought it was about time I did a podcast talking about this subject. Now, it's not going to be a massive one. It shouldn't take too long. I just wanted to help you guys understand it and give it more context to what that is. So the concept is called the pyramid of priorities. Now, I spoke about this in our very first podcast we did, the why, and I also spoke about it on the inspiration space where I was interviewed by Hayden. The purpose of it is that as a coach, the really important thing for me is that I see people's lives, I see people's lives change over an extended period of time, not just getting them from A to B or getting them bikini ready or getting them to run a marathon. You see the effects of exercise and the effects on your personality spill over into your day-to-day life. That's the really important thing for me, and that's what I want to experience with these individuals. Those little moments, those little gems where things have happened in their day-to-day life that have been as a consequence of exercise, and we can celebrate those moments. Now, the biggest problem I face as a coach is losing people. So what I mean by this is, for a lot of people, exercise can be quite hard. So generally falling off the bandwagon is something that can happen quite a lot. Now, there's many different reasons that this can happen. The main that I find though, is that people look too far ahead. So we live in a world of social media, and media and marketing and whatever, where we constantly give an opportunity to compare ourselves to other people. Now, this is human nature. The reality is that we're never going to really prevent this from happening too much. All we can kind of do is give people the tools and the knowledge to understand that they don't have to, that it's not a one-size-fits-all community. What I mean by that is that I may be person A and I'm looking at person B. Person B has a different set of variables that affect them as an individual, so it's unfair for me to compare myself to them. It's unfair to me, it's unfair to that individual as well. We never know how hard another individual has worked, so for us to try and achieve that or even criticize that would be very wrong of us to do so. So, what I wanted to do was create a bit of a concept or elaborate on a concept that I already knew that allowed my individuals, the people that I work with, to maintain on the bandwagon, should we call it, for as long a period as we can. So it's called the pyramid of priorities, and what it is a spectrum of where you would place yourself as an individual. So imagine you've got yourself a triangle. At the bottom of the triangle is split into four sections, At the bottom of the triangle, you've got a big thick base. This thick base it quantifies the most, it takes up the most part of the triangle. This means it's the most important bit, it lays the foundation for the rest of our progression. The bottom bit is called illness. We then go up a spectrum. This spectrum is going to be called wellness, so we're in the middle of the triangle now. Once we go past wellness, we go into the spectrum of fitness. And then at the top of the triangle, we have the spectrum of specificity. Now, there's a few big words in there, don't overthink it. The top part, specificity, It's important to understand that this does not come to a close. There is no peak on the triangle. It is open-ended. It is open-ended because fitness is an ongoing journey. There is no lid to it. There is no roof to it. We do not understand the limits of human potential. And ultimately, we can take ourselves anywhere with that. Now, let's go back down to the bottom of the triangle with wellness. This is where... No, of illness, sorry. Messed that one up already. Let's take ourselves to the bottom of the triangle of illness. This is the one where most people start. This is the category where individuals who would place themselves, who struggle with basic day-to-day tasks. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. You shouldn't be ashamed to put yourself in this category. It's just the reality of sometimes our environment as a place that's in here. Even if I was a completely fit and healthy human being, but I had a current injury, this is where I would place myself. This is where we have limiting factors in our life that are holding us back for whatever reason. Now, what I always ask my guys is, can you complete normal basic tasks? Can you get out of bed in the morning easily? Can you bend over to tie your shoelaces? Can I stand up off the sofa without putting my hands on my knees? Can I go a normal day without being in pain or lacking in energy for whatever reason? You need to ask yourselves these questions, and you need to place yourself within that category if you're finding you're answering yes to a lot of these questions. The next category up, wellness. Can you complete normal basic day-to-day tasks well and under stress? So what I mean by this is you need to think about things you do on a daily basis they're just not normally required of us, but they require a little bit more oomph. So carrying your shopping bags from the supermarket to the car, running up the stairs, playing with your kids in the garden, chasing your dog down the street when it ran off. Normal things like this that would be expected of us on a day-to-day basis, but require a little bit more oomph. Now, it's important to understand that these are the goals, but we can still achieve them by doing work in the gym. So what I mean by that is we move on to the next spectrum, is fitness. When we move into the spectrum of fitness, now we are allowed to focus on what we are doing in the gym. Can we make ourselves stronger? Can we make ourselves fitter? Can we jump higher? Can we run faster, etc., etc.? Am I doing these things well? Am I a fit human being? If not, this is where I need to focus my energy to allow myself to improve and get a base level of fitness, and then we can go on to the next spectrum of specificity. Now, when I talk about this is ultimately where our goals are going to lie. If my goal is to run a marathon, it would lie within this spectrum. If my goal is to have a six-pack or look phenomenal naked, this is where I would lie. If my goal would be to compete in a functional fitness competition, this is where my goal would lie. Now, here comes the problem. What most people do is they place themselves within one of the lower spectrums within illness or within wellness, whatever it might be. But they are already thinking about the higher spectrums. They are thinking about having a six-pack. They're thinking about what they're going to look like on a beach. The reality is, as humans, we don't do too well by looking too far ahead. Because when we do that, we have to acknowledge the long road ahead of us, and we remove all the other little wins that we would encounter along the way. So, for example, I've got a client at the moment, wonderful lady. When she came to me, she was thinking about where she wanted to be in about 6 months' time to a year. She was talking about she's gone on holiday, she wants to wear a bikini, etc., etc. The reality was she was in the lower part of the bottom spectrum. She was struggling with basic day-to-day tasks, and then she had a lower left hip injury that was kind of holding her back from doing a lot of lower body movements. We couldn't do squats, we couldn't do step-ups, pretty basic stuff that just involved an extended range of motion of her left hip, just meant that we couldn't do it. So for that reason, we quantified her within the illness category. It also meant it prevented her from doing day-to-day tasks really well, so that's why we placed her there. Now, we had a similar conversation to this where I said this is where we need to be focusing on, and it then allowed her to narrow in her focus on what we were trying to achieve on a day-to-day basis without her thinking too much about that long-term goal. So there was a time, probably about 6 weeks to 2 months into her training, where we were training and we were chatting away, and she stopped me and she goes, "I completely forgot to tell you." She goes, "Yesterday I ran up the stairs for the first time." Now, these are the little moments that I'm talking about. As a 60 plus individual who hasn't ran up the stairs in about 30 years, this is a really important thing. And these are what I was talking about at the start, when the spillover effects of exercise take over our day-to-day life. Those little moments and those little moments accumulating are going to be way more powerful than any Instagram photo you're going to have on the beach when you're in a bikini for the first time and you get over 100 likes or whatever. These are the powerful moments, and these are the ones that we want to try and stack up. So that's why we place people within these groups, so that they can acknowledge the little moments they have whilst they're in this group, and then progress out of that category and into the next one. It allows people to not look too far ahead. The other problem I face as a coach is that we constantly comparing ourselves to people on social media, and we set unrealistic expectations of ourselves. Now, like I said at the start, we don't know the influential factors that are affecting people. You know, when I was reading a book recently and the gentleman was interviewing numerous successful people, and the common denominator and the common variable among all the successful people and how they got to their levels of success was their ability to put up with boredom and to consistently stick at the rituals and the habits they had to do to achieve success. The reality is that comes with a certain amount of discomfort and dissatisfaction, more than your average individual is allowing yourself to put up with. We have families, we have kids, we have normal day-to-day lives. We can't put ourselves in the misery that some of these individuals can. So when we compare ourselves to these individuals, we forget the fact that we don't have the same variables in our life that they do. So what often happens is that we as individuals compare ourselves to those people. But if we can place ourselves in these spectrums, if we can improve ourselves on a day-to-day basis, and then we can take ourselves from illness into wellness and into fitness. Once we get ourselves into that fitness category and we start to kind of improve that base level of athleticism, of strength, of fitness, of how high we can jump, naturally, as a consequence of that, we are going to see improvements in body composition. Now, from my experience, more often than not, those improvements in body composition are enough for people. The little improvements, the little development in muscle in our legs and our chest and back and our arm, all that's required to make us happy. And then because we're performing well on a day-to-day basis in the gym, it's easier to note those improvements in performance. And all those things add up to that kind of sense of fulfillment and a higher sense of well-being that we get from going to the gym and doing well. Getting to that level of that we seek, that we originally sought after, that we've seen on Instagram or whatever, of a six-pack and ultimate levels of fitness or peak physique, when we get to that level of fitness where we're quite happy, what we've done is we've got an individual there without really overthinking the whole process. They've got from A to B, they've got to a level to which they are happy, without breeding the insecurities that you get from constantly focusing and desiring and working towards that ultimate goal of comparing yourself to someone else. And that's a really important part in this. It's allowing someone to set their expectations at a realistic level and progress from one stage to the other without breeding those levels of insecurity that we don't want. So in summary, we need to understand that fitness is an ongoing game. It's something that we want to have in our lives for the long run. By setting ourselves these expectations of these higher achievements, we can often demotivate ourselves and allow ourselves to fall off the bandwagon. We never really get to that level that we want to do. When we have a good understanding of where we are at this current moment in time and address the current priorities and problems that we are facing in day-to-day life, for example, a priority is being healthy enough to go into the garden and play with our kids, as opposed to looking good in a bikini and putting a photo on Instagram. That's how our priorities should be looked at. Which one is more important? So we should set ourselves up for success by doing this. We need to place ourselves in that right spectrum so that we can move on and we can plow our way forward. So For you as individuals and the application for ourselves, you need to have a good think about what spectrum you would place yourself in. Can you do day-to-day things well? Have you got any injuries that are of a cause to concern that are preventing you from doing other things? Or do you feel okay at most things, but you just haven't got that base level of fitness at the moment? You need to get a little bit stronger. You need to build up those foundations. You need to have a good and honest conversation with yourself and be self-aware to know where you would put yourself in. And then you need to only focus on what you would be within that category. So if you think that, all right, I'm healthy, I've got no injuries, I can do normal day-to-day things well, I'm playing with my kids all the time, I can carry shopping bags, I can run up and down the street. But when I'm in the gym, I'm not very good. I'm not very fit. I've got mobility issues. I can't run very far. I can't jump very high. I'm not very strong. That needs to be your primary focus before you start worrying about how you look in the mirror or specifying to whatever degree you want to go to. That's how you should have that honest conversation in your head. Now, what you need to have a think about then is what your goals are. If you're placing yourself within that lower category, for example, say the wellness category, but your current goals is to get a six-pack, those don't align. They don't match up. You need to have a think about that. And you need to take a step backwards and try and bring your goals to align with your current category. You need to get yourself out of that spectrum and move yourself up the pyramid step by step. Your goals should never go further than the spectrum you are currently in. Now, this isn't a quick fix. This isn't me giving you the magic pill to how you're going to get fitter or how you're going to get healthier. It's giving you a realistic way to manage your own expectations and allow fitness to be the long game and something that is part of your life for the long run, which is ultimately what we want it to be. This is no quick fix. Now, that's it. That's it in summary. I've tried to do that in the quickest time possible. It's only took me 17 minutes, so that's not so bad at all. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you sought some benefit in that. Have an amazing day.